from Normal Word Podcast with Dr. Marcin Nazaruk.
About the helping our listeners to take a practical action in their context. And so imagine there is somebody who says, oh, I really like what Simon is saying, and I would like to introduce this approach and raise awareness on those topics. I'm wondering, how did Simon do that? Simon, how did you do this?
From an executive level, or sort of like selling it into the organization?
So let's take those topics one by one. So Let's start with executive and then selling to the organization.
Okay. So I mean, from an exec perspective, I've done this a few times now. I think the biggest acknowledgement that you have to make is that everybody will be in a different place to acceptance or challenge to this, or being really, they'll speculate a lot and be will want to see it before they sort of sign up to it, if that makes sense. So I think that's a big thing you have to acknowledge first. Everybody's got a different learning capacity. Everybody's got a different appreciation to how things should be done. But I think rather than go in with we need to do a restorative just culture, we need to do learning reviews, we need to examine normal work, do critical risk, and do that sort of thing. You need to almost handhold, individuals through this and teams through this, because, like I said, you're challenging core beliefs of people, that they've had their entire career, or since their training, or under different practitioners that they've worked with in there as well. And what I've found is one of the most successful routes into this is really just trying to pick opportune moments within, whether it be meetings or workshops and starting to introduce some of the theories into this stuff. So, for example, when historically, when performance is reviewed, a lot of the people will just go directly for the red. They'll be like, oh, there's a massive problem here, that's a big risk, and we need to sort that out, but without any attention to the green and understanding what makes that green. And was there any learning within that green? Because what's the for example, what's the trigger to make it green? If it's 70%, then there's 30% of potential learning in there as well that's really challengeable, that potentially didn't go right. But then also you need to understand the 70% to understand why it went right within that context as well. And it's really trying to get into people's mindsets of challenging success, but also obviously challenging the negative as well, to understand this sort of stuff. And I can give different examples of this. So you can have we've had a meeting in Docklands before where it was green, but the person who was presenting that metric actually said, under different circumstances on a different day with different staff, that would have been a red day. And it was great, because Adam's done plenty of coaching with this individual and really upskilled this individual. And he is, he's a head of department. He's absolutely fantastic in our space, but he recognizes that. So he is actually looking into that and delving into that type of performance, and what makes up that performance now. So it's really, for me, it's great to have a greenfield site where you can just say, we're starting a new business and we could just put all this in from the start, and great, we'll just go with it. But very few businesses are at that stage, and there's not much opportunity like that. So you have to work with people, but then you have to plot the journey as well, to say, right, what are we going to get the, not necessarily the biggest win from, but how do we start this conversation and how do we start this journey? So for us in Docklands, we decided and we started with the restorative just culture, because that was a way of really getting into people, starting to build trust, and we're at the stage now where we've got frontline members of staff giving us direct feedback on how they trust the organisation more, that they won't be, fed to the lions for making a simple everyday, honest, genuine mistake, and really coming forward with innovative ideas, being more open in learning reviews. so much more collaboration and trust being built and demonstrated on a daily basis. You know, so but that obviously starts at the exec level, because the exec needs to buy into this.
Yes.
You know, and it's challenging these mindsets, is using these examples of the principles, and then obviously when you get to a point where, you know, people are starting to get it and understand it a bit, that's when you start to then start looking at, you know, doing some briefings, which, you know, I've done quite extensively. Myself and Adam have done them to wider, you know, wider senior management groups and the wider management group within Docklands. But also as well, I think it's down to the way people learn as well. So, you know, I've had 2 managing directors within my time in Docklands, and for one, it was easier and more beneficial to talk with and go through it like that. And the other one, it was a combination of both talking, but also using, you know, like the bite-sized videos you get on YouTube, which, you know, which explain from one of the academics. And, you know, they've found that the learning like that was really beneficial as well.
So it sounds like the executive engagement happened in an organic manner, where you were coaching and helping and supporting and sharing some of thoughts, ideas, concepts and tools as the organization was progressing, and providing this thought-provoking ideas there. And so how much time it took you from the moment you started to the point where you felt, okay, this team is ready now, we can move on to a broader implementation?
Okay, so I mean, first and foremost, I don't think the journey ever stops.
Sure.
Because I think everybody is at a different level, you know, of both engagement, understanding, and promotion of the concepts. But I would suggest that, I mean, this is no, you know, like a couple of weeks, couple of months, and then bang, we're in. You know, this is, you know, probably, to get the restorative just culture policy and issued, the briefings, you know, really starting to go out, and people really starting to talk and get invigorated about it, I would say it was an 18-month journey. Because what needs to be understood is that, you know, everybody's at different paces, everybody's got different experiences. You know, a lot of people will say, well, we do that anyway. You know, and things like that. You probably hear that quite a bit. But, you know, it's a big change, you know, for the organisation, to go along a different approach. And it does obviously identify, you know, masses of different learning and experiences and improvement. But, you know, it is a journey, and it does take time. You know, every single business, and this is where I think one of the things that is a bit misunderstood is people think you can just get this stuff off the shelf. You know, and the amount of times that I've been contacted, you know, whether it be on LinkedIn or whatever it may be, to say, Simon, can you send me the framework for this? And it's different for every single organization, because every organization's got a different context, it's got different values, it's got different objectives, you know, different sort of shareholder arrangements, and different, you know, sort of ways of doing business. You know, our franchise, you know, runs out, expires in sort of end of March 25. You know, so our sort of priority and speed would be totally different to an owned business that's got, you know, say 10 years to implement this. You know, so one of the really important things when doing this, but that it's something that's got to be acknowledged when you're talking, you know, and starting to plan this, with trying to, you know, get this bought into in the exec, is you have to look at the business and the objectives and what makes that business tick, and but what also, you know, other departments' objectives are, because you can't go, you know, in direct, you know, sort of polar opposites with something else that somebody else is trying to do. So it's trying to find ways that complements all, and that's the key, and that's the secret, and that's where I think safety people now who want to go down this line is they need to understand the business more than just their area. You know, you need to understand the objectives and where we're all going to in the business plan and the strategy for the business.